Gameday, baby. Oh.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Perf Roundtable. Today we've got Kelly, Steve, Sam, and Leanne, and myself, and we'll be talking about game day. So, across all athletes who compete in powerlifting, game day is the important day in which we want all three of our lifts to perform. Before that day happens, I think it's important as the coach to discuss with the lifter expectations going in and how they might expect to perform. So, Kelly, I'd like to pass it on to you. What would a game day plan look like for someone whose training has been going really well and they're likely to taper and, have a really good performance versus someone who's going to come in, not doing so well? How might you discuss like expectations with the lifter?
Um, I think that completely depends on the lifter and themselves. So whether to discuss things before you have a competition. I've got some lifters who want to know everything down to a T. I've got some lifters who want to make attempt choices with me and discuss them first. And then I've got others who don't want to know at all, and we talk about it, but it's not a sit down type, chat with what we expect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that just goes on. So I follow how they like to do it. So I know going in to Worlds with Meg last year, we didn't really discuss. We knew that she wanted the podium. We didn't discuss expectations at all because of her opponents, who she ended up not making weight anyway. But we didn't want to put unrealistic. I didn't want to put unrealistic expectations on her. So we just knew what she had in training, and she was only going to hit what she had in training, given the type of peak. And I feel for that type of instance, it was like we kind of had the discussions earlier than taper week or earlier than peak week, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Going into the competition. So for me, I always go on what the lifter likes to do in terms of how they like to know and what type of interaction they like to have during meet week, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's lifters that
So
want to have that like day-to-day plan and like everything accounted
yep.
for, and then there's some people that just don't want to do anything, just want to lift.
Yeah, and I don't really have any difference that I'll have if someone's running momentum, or someone's going to lift what they lift in training. It doesn't really have, it's not a really different conversation for me. It just means that the numbers on the page might be a little bit different. The top end might be a bit different.
Yeah.
That's more, if I'm not there, I'll discuss that with the handler. I probably won't discuss it as much with the athlete. And with myself, I'll just take that into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like it's harder, I guess if you don't know your athlete well, it's very
Yeah.
important, that you know the program and what to expect coming out of your peak and taper, right? Because if you've run a
Yeah.
program really well and you know what to expect based off their training, you can write the plan that hopefully, if all things run smoothly, like they'll have a good day.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that work happens before the last week. Like if you don't know, it's you've got a fair idea like a month out, but then you're coming into 2 weeks out, your idea is a bit more, but your formula, for me, I formulate ideas around, that 3 to 4 week out margin of what it could be. And then I'll have obviously the peak's happening at that time. I'll have a predictability of what I think that's going to happen during the peak. And then that will dictate the numbers that are, going on the sheet.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think me personally, when I write out like attempts for my lifters, I like to have like first like a aggressive plan, a conservative plan, and like
Oh
something
yeah,
that's
definitely.
as expected.
Yeah,
How
definitely.
would you write it out for someone where the variation is just so large? Like, for example, for some of my lifters, those 3 plans might deviate only say 2.5 or 5 kilos. But if say you're running with someone who's like injured or someone who's you've never worked with and they've reported like their peak goes crazy and they just outperform whatever they do in training, how do you manage writing out a plan that's just unexpected?
I'm trying to think an instance where I've had that. I guess the opener is going to be pretty set, right? So I guess the ranges between the second and the third attempts, and especially the top end, might be a little bit different. And I think it's really important there that even though it's on paper, that you're also taking that into consideration in your head. In my head, I take into consideration in my head. I mean, I don't know if I've had an instance where it's been that. I mean, I guess we could go on with your national Sam.
Yeah.
That squat, we had no idea what was going to happen. So I had it on paper, but you know what I mean? Like I was leaving it up in the air and looking at what was going on there. And we just communicated really clearly that that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the
I think in
time that I could think of recently.
Yeah. I think in those scenarios when you're dealing with that injury or situations like that, when it is so unpredictable, it very much has to be working with the athlete on that day, on the fly as you go, because you just don't know. So just being like clear with your communication in the comp as much as you can. And then obviously in the week leading up, just letting them know that, hey, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. We have to make these decisions on the fly. You know, you do open, lighter or conservative, and then you just take the jumps from there, which is very much what we did, right? Like we opened conservative on the spot and then just judged it based on bar speed and how I was feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Like everyone's got a plan until you're in the arena, right? And then that's where emotions are high. You as the coach need to be, you know, objective while the athlete does their thing.
Yeah, I think when I'm looking back, I think I've made the most mistakes when I've stuck to the plan. Like in terms of like if something deviates and I will say to myself, no, this lifter had this in this training, it's okay, and then haven't made the right decision. That's kind of, I think I prefer to, you know, I've got that there, but I've got all the scenarios in my head, but make sure I am able to choose which scenario to go with.
Yeah, for sure. I guess jumping on, sorry, Leanne, did you ask?
It's like communication in the taper as well, like with the athlete, because like you as a coach can kind of do as much as you can, but if you don't know how the lifter is actually feeling, like you kind of don't have as much predictability.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like moving on to like the day itself, right? So once the plan's been set and you have all these contingency plans, I guess me personally, I have a process where like I think, all right, how do I get this athlete to perform on that platform when they need to? And it comes down to 2 things for the coach to do. It's like 1, be very meticulous with like time management, and then 2, make sure that you're putting in the right attempts in line with the athlete.
Yeah, definitely.
Steve, have you had like instances where you've worked through those 2 processes? Like time management is very important in terms of warming up, and then attempt selection as well, because you've had a lot of head-to-heads in the past season of powerlifting. Do you want to explore that a bit?
I guess so. We're talking about time management. Obviously, a lot of my head-to-heads come from my own athletes at the same time as well. It's not just that can be a hard one when they're both my athlete. But then we've also got, you know, I wouldn't say time management comes into play in a head-to-head battle, because that's more of a strategic battle, right? That's attempt selections, and that's putting your athlete in the best position to be able to, you know, be, you know, in the position to win, whether they're, you know, winning on subtotal and they don't have the biggest pull, or whether they have the biggest pull and they're going to close out the day. So it's just putting someone in that position.
Yep.
So we can talk about a ton of different scenarios that I've been in both different cases, you know, with someone having much larger subtotal and then someone having the bigger pull, right? But in both scenarios, I'm setting that person up to put them in the best position to win.
Yeah.
Which is always going to be, we're going 8 from 8. And I guess the higher level that we get someone as well, the more, I guess, the less risk we're taking. The more risk we take when you're in a head-to-head battle, the larger the risk is, right? If you lose 2.5 keys, that can cost you the whole day.
Yeah, for sure. I guess to play devil's advocate as well, like if you take it too conservatively, could you also end up in the same position as well?
Yes, you could definitely. But that depends on the other athlete that you're versing, right? That you're coming up against and the other coach that you're coming up against. If you've done your homework on someone, you should know where you're going to end up, and you should almost know where they're going to end up as well. Saying you've done the homework and you've done the groundwork leading into the competition.
Yeah. I think another point to add, like on top of yours, if you were to take that conservative approach and you both end up in the same outcome, but one was by you making a lift, you're also generating momentum lift by lift as well till you're 8 for 8.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I think that ties into like lifter psychology as well. It's super important to make sure like the lifter is just feeling like they're building their total by making.
And they got to be on that page, right? The same page as you. So they got to be understanding like, all right, you've hit this in training. I just need you to hit it again now.
Definitely.
Okay, we're building the momentum throughout the day. It's not about, okay, this is competition day, so let's go hit something you've never hit before. Because if you go and miss, if we take a 10-kilo jump on your squat when it should have just been a 7.5-kilo jump, and even if they do get it and they grind the shit out of it, and then that rolls on to the deadlifts or something. Yeah. Whereas if they took the 7.5-kilo jump, right, and it ends up being, a true RPE 9, which is quite fast in reality sometimes, right? Then they're rolling that momentum and not carrying anything into their deadlifts, which is then, I've had this conversation with Kelly before. So if we add that 10 kilos and they grind that squat out, right? But that costs them 5 kilos, 7.5 kilos on their deadlift. So there's the trade-off there, right? So if you take the more conservative, I guess, squat, to lead into the deadlifts, you can then take a bigger jump and finish higher on your deadlifts. So if we think about James, perfect example, the squat he hit at nationals was the hardest squat that I've had in competition, and his deadlift tanked because of it. Whereas if we took 2.5 kilos less, he could have then pulled what we had on the bar for sure.
Yeah, and you're banking on like if he takes 2.5 kilos less on his squat, potentially that gives him say 7.5 or 10 on his deadlift. So the net increase is more if you save yourself across all three lifts.
Yeah, and it's all about total, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think taking it back a bit, as you've mentioned, like attempt selection is very important for head-to-head battles, but I think for all lifters, like time management is the most important thing to get someone onto the platform. Because if you're someone who's like just missed 3 warm-ups and then you need to go out and hit your opener, it's a disaster, right? So I think coming onto competition day, it's very important, because I've had lifters where I think going into a competition, your first ever competition, you don't know what the flow of a competition is like. You don't know when to warm up because there's no designated time to tell you, hey, you need to do this at this time. So you need to learn how to manage the time given to you. Usually it's like the 30 minutes after weigh-in to the best of your ability. I've seen instances where it's like, because you don't know what you should be doing at a given time, you're kind of just going the flow with everyone else, and that might make you warm up too late or too early. Sam, how
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
Common mistake.
People going with the flow, they're just jumping in with other people, not actually paying attention to where they are in the flight or when they're going to be lifting. So then they finish their warm-ups and they don't realize they're at the end of the flight, and they've just finished at the same time as someone that's at the start of the flight.
Yeah.
I remember like even with my own lifting, right? Like when you have your first comp or so and you've just weighed in and then you see someone like whack some knee sleeves on and get under a bar and you go, oh shit, I think I need to put knee sleeves on and get under a bar. So
Yeah.
I think having like conversations with your athlete well in advance and being clear in terms of the timeline, like it doesn't need to be that early, or you should probably start now, or giving them that rough kind of, okay, 30 minutes out, you need to have your gear on, you need to be under a bar, and then you get the spacings from there. I think that's really important, because there is obviously that follow the leader mentality in the warm-up room, where once someone starts warming up, it's game on and everyone's warming up. So
Yeah.
I think
that I think it's just important that the athlete knows where their strengths are as well. Like if they're a bench presser and they know they're going to be down the bottom of the flight, then they should know, have that conversation with them early, saying you worry about yourself and I'll tell you when to start and that kind of stuff, so they know.
Yeah. I
It
think a
just
lot
comes
of
down to having everything ready, right? It's like I'll just go to an athlete. Look, all right, flight starts at 10. I want your first warm up done at 9:36. We've already got that all laid out. We have the plan laid out that this is when you're going to hit this warm up and your last warm up will be at this time. It is time management skills. It's just having everything ready. That comes with time as a coach as well. Obviously not going to know that straight away how the day will flow, but then you can also look around and see, okay, this guy, if you've never done it before, right? You say, okay, this guy's lifting before you on the platform. So you could just be like, okay, you're after him each warm up. You're after him. If your management skills aren't that great at any given time, you can just be like, you go after him. Or if you're extremely busy, right? Like if you're handling 6 to 7 people, I've done it once before. You can just let the athlete know you're going to be going after him. You'll be going after him, and just roll it like that.
Yeah. I think the job of the coach is a lot of just telling people you don't need to go right now. Because especially when everyone's emotional, they're like, can I go? Can I go? No, you're going in 5 minutes. I need you to just relax. So I guess
sit down and have some fucking water and food.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what powerlifting is, right? So I think that's also gonna tie into lifter psychology as well. So you have people that are willing to listen and relax and just go off the flow and do whatever the coach tells them to do. And then you also have people that want to be involved or just don't have that trust yet and want to, look at the numbers, look at the score sheet, and that can also stress them out. Leanne, do you want to just discuss about these two types of archetypes of lifters, like someone who's super relaxed and willing to just lift versus someone who's more neurotic?
I've definitely handled both ends of the spectrum. And I think from a coach's perspective, it's a lot easier to handle someone who's calmer because they can listen to you a lot easier and it flows a lot better. Whereas if there's someone that is a bit more neurotic and, they're all over the place, rushing up and down, walking up and down. I think it's more just being able to figure that out before the comp, seeing what sort of lifter they are before. So then on the day you can be like, okay, I know they're going to be like this and how am I going to approach it?
Yeah.
So being able to know they need to maybe calm down a little bit more so that they can stay in control of their performance. Yeah.
People that are more relaxed are able to regulate themselves more, whereas working with that more anxious type of personality, it's a balance between letting them in on the plan so they at least know that there's some thought going into what time they're lifting and things like that, but also not letting them freak out about the numbers.
Yeah. If you give them too much information, they can they tend to just freak out essentially. So it's giving them enough to stay in control, but also knowing how much they need.
Yeah. Do you feel like this goes to everyone, I guess, as the relationship develops, how has game day coaching changed? Let's go with Kelly and Sam, especially because you guys work together. How has game day coaching evolved as you've developed more and more trust over time?
Me with him?
Yeah, both of you guys.
I think the big change for us was states and nationals this year. and still will go into Malta a bit more. I'm stepping back more and more in terms of what's happening before and what's happening on the day. I think nationals were the first time you disagreed with me with what you wanted to put on the barbell ever. And I let you go with it. So it was more like I'm the more advanced that he's getting, the less I'm doing.
Yep.
On game day, I'm feeling, if that makes sense. Like knows how to warm himself up, knows how to time himself, knows all those things to do. And I'm kind of, you know, picking attempts to stand back, if you know what I mean.
Yep. It makes your job easier.
Yeah, it's just evolving that way.
Yeah. I'm pretty, like myself, I'm pretty on the ball, like in terms of timing and that. Like obviously in like a bigger meet like nationals and worlds, that you definitely want to have that person going, all right, go now, loading your weights for and stuff. But I think for most of the work we've done in the past, like it's very much all, you know, like states and stuff. I'm pretty on the ball with my own timings of warm-ups and all of that. And then it's basically just having Kelly there mainly for attempts, because she has seen me move for so long and then knows exactly how much I have in the tank and can kind of separate myself from my own emotions in terms of what I want and what I actually have on that day. Again, the only exception being that national deadlift record, which was obviously fueled by a lot of kind of fire and emotion. I really wanted that number. So that was probably the one time where I was like, nah, just let me have a crack. I don't really care. I mean, there was less pressure on that day too, because I had kind of already sealed first place. Yes, I wanted to PB, but you know, I'd already set myself up just to have a crack on that last deadlift. There was less pressure. So that was kind of my moment where I could be like, nah, Kelly, I'm loading that up.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I think as athletes start to evolve and like get more experience, like I remember especially working with people going through their first comp, as the coach, you do a lot for the athlete, and it becomes like a very one-on-one personal kind of thing. Then once they've gone through those multiple comps, they like get the flow, and it's the same thing every time. Like not much changes aside from like some little thing like the flight starting earlier or later, but the structure never changes. So there's always predictability, which helps within the sport. And then as an athlete, like it's easier to develop that sense of autonomy.
Yeah, I think it depends like how long you work with the lifters for as well. Like I did notice during the big standouts for me was Steve's 74 boys at Junior Nats. They were all very much for the game day and knew what they were doing, and you know, we were all handling them. But you could tell that they all trained together and know each other type thing, and they looked like a team that was helping each other out as well as competing against each other, if you know what I'm saying. So can tell that they'd been prepped really well before that, rather than, you know, seeing athletes wandering around out the back and not sure what they're doing and stuff like that. And I feel like that prep happens before game day, not on game day, if that makes sense. So that was a big standout for me, what I saw that day.
Yeah, sure. I think the worst thing is when a lifter just wanders off and you can't find them for 10 minutes. Then that's the scariest thing for a coach on the day. It's like, oh no, they're about to miss like 2 warm-ups. When they come back, they need to do like a warm-up or 2. So just letting lifters know where they need to be at a given time, I think is super important.
I'm big on just like letting my athlete know that I'm setting them up for the best, because you've seen me before, obviously, at a lot of competitions. I spend a lot of my time at the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm calculating numbers the whole time, seeing where we're going to end up and what we need. So obviously we come in with a game plan. I've done my groundwork on who we're versing and what we're coming up against, but I just make sure that I'm as close to that game plan that I've set up as possible. So I tell my athlete, look, I'll be back and I'll tell you when you got to get under the bar, but I need to go and do this for you to set you up for later on in the day.
Yeah. Stay right here. Don't go anywhere.
Stay here. I'll come back and tell you to get under the bar, and I'll watch how you're moving, and then I'm going to go back to that screen.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lot of game day handling. Pretty much a lot of steps for us coaches, but it's a mental battle in terms of numbers. and just carving time for our lifters. But I think that covers game day coaching, I think. But yeah, thanks guys for jumping on. Short one today. And next episode will come out soon, next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Nice quick one.